Do you find yourself scrambling at the last minute to get things done? This one shift helped me stop living in crisis mode, and you can steal it super easy. Let's talk about those surprise curveballs that pop up in your business and totally throw off your week. You know the ones that I'm talking about, right? A last minute client ask that takes a couple hours, maybe you realize you're missing a document for a case that's coming in tomorrow. There's a team hiccup, somebody calls in sick, a tech issue. Or for me, it was a very motion sick elementary schooler who kept throwing up on the bus and having to come home for 24 hours. Yep, for a long time in my business, I lived in this just in time mode, prepping the day before a meeting. Sometimes literally 5 minutes before a client walked in the door. We've all been there. And I'd be scrambling, looking for a document, realizing I needed something from a client, or I'd be rushing through a recommendation and make typos and mistakes. And if I didn't have what I needed, I can remember emailing the client the last minute. And yeah, that's pretty obvious that I was working on their stuff right then, right? Which is not a good look and definitely not the client experience that I was deeply desiring to provide. Even though I'm really great under pressure, so even if you are too, I started to realize that I didn't want that pressure all of the time, especially because life happens. And in our house, that life was a call from the school saying, your son just threw up in the bus. Can you please come pick him up and keep him home again? So now I'm out of the office, I'm behind on prep, and that domino effect, right? That total stress, ugh. So I made a shift. Instead, I started prepping in advance. I committed to working 2 weeks in advance. And before you tell me, Libby, that's not realistic, look, I get it. I only worked 3 days a week in my firm, so maybe for you, a 1 week buffer is perfect. But for me, 2 weeks was the magic number. It gave me space, it gave me time to gather materials, give my team instructions to run illustrations or do some research, time to request things from the client without making it feel urgent. And it was definitely a pretty big flex that I was working ahead when we were emailing the client and saying, we're preparing for your meeting. And honestly, it just made everything go smoother because I had margin. Instead of cramming the night before and trying to figure out who I was going to see and get their stuff done, I could actually sit down and take my time and fine tune my recommendations. I could reflect. I could think strategically. In client meetings, they were better too. Because we had plenty of time to ask clients in advance what was on their agenda and what they wanted to talk about, that meant fewer, oh, by the way, questions that would pop up at the very end of a meeting that really could have taken up the whole meeting, right? Like that last 5 minutes saying, hey, should we be looking at long-term care insurance? Yeah, I wish I would have known that 40 minutes ago. So in my office, we would email them 2 weeks in advance to find out their agenda before I created mine. So here's the trick. Build prep time into your model week for meetings that are 2 weeks out. So your team has to be prepping in advance of that, right? This buffer, it gives you freedom. It reduces stress and it keeps you out of reactive mode. And most importantly, it really kind of gives you space to lead your practice like a CEO, not a survive the day firefighter. So if you're tired of feeling behind or scattered or like you're constantly reacting, try building in a little buffer. Even a little prep ahead is a total game changer. And trust me, your team will thank you, your clients will feel it, and you will have margin for the curveballs, even the motion sick, bus ride kind of kid. So moving into prepping in advance. And I know, again, it sounds like 2 weeks is a little excessive because your team has to start prepping even earlier than that and getting all of the details together. But I cannot stress to you enough how much this changed everything for everyone in our business. And again, I would sit down on a Monday morning. My team would give me this stack of all of my meetings that were coming up 2 weeks from now. And I could sit there and go through everything. And if I needed something, it wasn't a last minute emergency, right? I had 2 weeks to research, to pull together a new recommendation, to have my team run illustrations, put a tax return inside of our tax software if we were going to be making an adjustment to a portfolio that might trigger something. Like we had time and space. And once we got there, there was no going back. We loved it so much that we really, really stuck with that cadence for the vast majority of my years working 3 days a week, which I think I got down to 3 days a week about 4 or 5 years into my business and stayed there for the duration. And the first several years, everything was just in time and we were scrambling at the last minute and it was really stressful. This shift was so good for my mental health and my team's mental health, right? Because I wasn't last minute when they're working on other projects, dropping things on their plate saying, I need this and I need that, right? Like everybody felt so much calmer. And I was joking the other day about, this culture of being in beast mode all of the time and how I'm a big believer in being in peace mode. Like, how can I protect my peace? How can I still accomplish all of the goals that I set out to accomplish? How can I still have the success that I want to have? And how do I protect my peace? So this strategy, working 2 weeks in advance, is one of the things that helped me step out of overwhelm and stay in that peace mode.